Save on select Vostro laptops with built-in security features and select Latitude laptops with enhanced privacy, collaboration, and connectivity. Plus, get special financing with Dell Business Credit. Dell Technologies recommends Windows 11 Pro for business. Call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL. Offered to business customers by WebBank, who determines qualifications for and terms of credit.
Gain presents a tale of longing and long-lasting scent. Dear love of my life, we were on the 12B bus when I caught a whiff. A scent so fresh, so life-changing, I had to find its source. I didn't know if you were the woman in the pink freshly washed cardigan or the retired mailman next to me, but I knew one of you was my soulmate. Ah, the scent of Gain Flings. Add Gain scent beads for an even longer lasting scent.
The Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and online at WGNSradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Tuesday morning edition of the Roundtable Show with your host, Wayne Blair, and myself, Rick Hall. Come to you every Tuesday morning here from the WGNS studios in Murfreesboro. We try to concentrate on the north end of the county and what's going on and people and history and things like that, and enjoying our wonderful day. How are you, Wayne?
I'm fine. Good morning, brother. Boy, we had quite the 4th. The town of Smyrna did a spectacular fireworks display, and it's just a great time overall.
I agree. I think the weather was kind of scary there for a minute, but it moved out, and I didn't hear any complaints as far as traffic. I guess with that roundabout, it really opened things up and helped it. But
right now, our weekends are just full of rain.
That's right.
You just almost can't find boat time during the weekends because of the weather, and I think this next weekend is supposed to rain as well. So.
Yeah, I had a friend had the Smyrna splash pad. They had a birthday party, and because it has some kind of system that reads thunder and lightning within 15 miles, they have to shut that thing down for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So he said that guy would have the thing about to open it, and something would hit, and they said, "Oh, I'll be back in 20 minutes."
I try not to complain about the rain because I remember a couple of droughts in the last
You're right.
40 years that you're wondering where the next drop's coming from. So, but hey, we're into summer, we're into July, so we'll just take the humidity and the heat as it comes.
That's right.
Brother Rick, we have an amazing guest this morning, someone that I've known, for a long time, and it's safe to say I respect him as much as anybody that I've ever known, and it's quite the honor to have a former director of schools, has worn so many hats in this county community, and Mr. Don Odom, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Known you a long time too, and of course Hillary and Zachary, your children.
Yes, sir.
Those years at David Urey, and glad to see Rick again. Not only county commissioner, but Smyrna Police, which has had a really good relationship for many years with David Urey.
You were my principal in third grade.
I run into that
seems like about third
a lot.
time you remember it. You start remembering things.
Yeah, I recall now. I see lots of people now that as a student.
I don't know how
once
you do it.
time.
Well, be able to keep up with it.
My claim to fame is I was his PTO president when my children were there, and I got to serve with him when he was. I got to serve on school board when he was director of schools.
Yeah.
So I got to vote for his hire and renewal. So that was not only a pleasure but an honor as well, Mr. Odom.
Thank you.
I got a story. I know he's going to remember me now. I was sitting there, I said, I remember this. So I think I was third or fourth grade. I lived at the bottom of David Urey. If you think of Town View down in Walnut, I lived off Walnut Street. So I had to walk back and forth to school. And then on the weekends, of course, you played in the area. And I went up there, rode my bike up. There were some kids that I knew. And we went up there. Well, there's these other kids that showed up that usually didn't hang out with us. One ended up going down in the woods and come out with this rock, and they threw it through the library window. we all scattered, like ants on fire. This kid that threw this thing through. Of course, I go to school on Monday, and I told 3 or 4 people that I saw this happen. So the next thing I know, they come and got me, and I had to go to Mr. Odom's office. So I understand you might know what happened to the window in the library. Well, yes, sir, I do. So I don't know if you remember that or not, but
yeah, Vernon Young's son Maurice was there too. He was one of the detectives at the time, and also we had one group. I remember that parents paid for their damage to the windows in the library, and it took most of what they got from their income tax return that year.
Oh, wow.
They got a refund. They had to turn it over.
Mr. Odom, you've been around a while. I mean, you not only director of schools, but assistant superintendent over curriculum. You had something to do with attendance, but
Yes.
you've been a principal, a teacher. I mean, we could probably talk the entire time just about your career.
You need the summary, right? Okay. Well, basically, I graduated from MTSU in 1968, and I kind of worked my way across the county. Started at Kittrell, was there 4 years, and then did see the closing of the high school at Kittrell, because that in 1972 is when Oakland and Riverdale opened.
Right.
So I did go to Oakland. I was the math department chairperson there, and stayed at Oakland until then Mr. David Urey actually was at the old Smyrna Rock School, and due to health reason, respiratory, basically he retired in November of '75. So I actually started in November of '75 at the Rock School. That was really a pretty good way to start. That's well before you had assistant principals and that sort of thing. So he had organized the school. It started. I had Miss Jean Davenport as the secretary.
Right.
I understood and knew most of that. So got a chance to watch and see it, but then we began the process of moving into David Urey the next fall. So I was at David Urey, really, Rock School a year, and then it's like 20 years at David Urey, opening David Urey. Mr. Hewlin Watson brought me to the central office. I was over the attendance department. Miss Mary Hayes retired. I was over that for 4 years, and then Harry Gill became director of schools, and he came to me and sat down in front of me and said, I want you to be assistant superintendent, curriculum and instruction. So I had that job for 9 years, and then director of schools for 6 years. But like I said, I kind of worked my way across the county from Kittrell to Oakland to the Smyrna Laverne area and all. And I had been asked earlier about going to be a principal. Mr. Waldron asked me about being a principal at Laverne. At that time, I didn't have my master's, didn't have my certification for principalship and that sort of thing. So I thought I'd really be better, still young in the profession, to give it a little bit more time. So that's kind of the quick. Then I retired, 5 years ago now. So and have enjoyed retirement too, but still keep up with education. So
I'm sure. You do a little farming or have?
I do. I got some Black Angus cows. I used to say people weren't always glad to see you come to a school or be there, but cows are really glad to see you if you're going to bring them something to eat. So it's glad to see you coming, so they are enjoyable.
Don't touch me, but feed me.
Right.
So did you, I guess, childhood grew up on farm?
Well, my grandfather had a farm, and my grandfather was actually a hall, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And I was a county commissioner when I was a child at the time, too. W.D. Hall
What a
was his name.
coincidence.
Wow. So, small world.
That is a small world.
Most of my father did plumbing, electrical work, and was a mail carrier. Carried the mail from really Muffinsboro all the way to Watertown, and so I hung on to his coattails a little bit. And we built some houses and did some plumbing, electrical work. So I do a lot of do-it-yourself stuff.
Oh,
that
wow.
I picked up from that. So.
Do you make house
My
calls?
mother was a teacher. Teachers tend to beget teachers, so my mother was a teacher, and that's
Yeah, they do.
kind of what brought that.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. I'm not from here. My dad was from South Florida, but it seems like there was a pretty prevalent hall area around this area. I guess I probably ought to do that ancestors.com and see if I can figure out.
Not all of them are related.
We
but
might be
pretty common
cousins
name.
somehow, somewhere.
I'm not sure. Nona Hall's husband, I'm not sure if he was a native or if he was a transplant. So
You know, she's probably told me, but I think I've forgotten. Do that. So,
yeah, Hall's pretty prominent. Blair's like a litter of puppies. I mean, mongrel puppies. They're all over the place. So.
goodness.
But tell us about your most meaningful experience in your education career. I don't know, you probably have several, but maybe something just stands out in your mind.
I do not necessarily have one event or that sort of thing, but it is so rewarding to work with children. I mean, sometimes to mentor teachers and see them turn into the instructor and the leadership that you see from them doing that. But certainly students, over the years, they remember you very often as their principal. Of course, I have them walk up to me now. You remember me as principal? That's been a few years ago. So, being from elementary school, you change how you look quite a bit during that time. But all of those relationships, that's what I think of more than anything. And it's just a accumulation of those things.
But it kind of had to be a grind sometimes too, with personnel problems and behavioral problems. I suspect in your career, when you first became a principal, and then when you moved on to right before you move on to the central office, the way parents reacted probably changed somewhat.
Well, I did make that statement probably as director. People say, how have children changed? And one of my observations through my years through all of those particular departments and areas, that I don't think children have changed as much as parenting and the aspects of that as you take a look at it. Children are children. They'll always, they do very often what we did as children and that sort of thing. But when I was going to school, very often, if you got in trouble at school, you were going to be in trouble when you got home.
Amen.
Amen. And my mom, and they knew it very quickly. She taught. So it's a little bit different now, but it's still very critical to parents to become partners with their school. Listen to what your child says. Listen to what your teacher says, and be that partner. And I guess now we look at the third grade reading retentions and that sort of thing. If I could give parents advice from my years of experience and looking back on it now, for those that have toddlers and all at home, read to your children. The one thing that I could say that really I think makes the difference is those parents who had the bedtime stories, who read the books to their children to create that interest in it, and then helping with the achievement test. And the test today is when you read that story at them, start asking them questions about it, because when they run into these state tests and exams and that sort of thing, the comprehension piece is the huge piece. And that develops, and children develop that love for reading from their parents. So, I would have parents talk to me, said, I used to read to my child even before they were born. And, so.
Oh, wow.
I really would say that's probably one of the most critical things to do. And then be involved with your child. If they're playing sports or they're doing what the schools or the PTOs and the organizations, be a person there. Show that you're interested in them and be involved in what they're doing, because, again, that's how we treat our children is how our children will treat their children. So future generations are dependent upon that relationship.
What I found so amazing about you, not only your heart, but that you were able to decipher or interpret data. I mean, you were just crazy good at that, and I just was always amazed at how you could take those statistics and cull them into basically layman's terms.
Well, my BS and my master's were both kind of in mathematics, and some in undergraduate degree. At one time, I thought I would be an engineer. Really, MTSU didn't have engineering, so I did industrial technology, and really didn't have the money to go somewhere to an engineering school. So did that, and then added education and things into that. So it was my years in math, I guess, to do that. I was on the scene when the value-added system came in, as we tried to figure that out. I had many conversations with Dr. Sanders, who developed that through UT. Interestingly enough, a lot of these statistics come from agriculture. And some of the background, that's what his background was. His wife, June, so attended many sessions with them in the value-added system, and we used to, as principals, what is this? You know, what is a value-added system? You was used to achievement, the old achievement test, which we may have even taken as children, but the value-added system is taking a child where they are and adding to that. And the state started measuring that and basing. So we fought it for a while, but then it's kind of like a lot of things. I hate to maybe use the term play the game, but you have to learn what it's really trying to do. So I kind of became a proponent of some of that in measuring. Harry Gill and I would compete a little bit between David Urey and his time there. And actually, probably is one of the reasons why he asked me later on to do, because he knew my focus was on seeing children's growth. His focus definitely was on seeing the growth of children in the academics. And so that was very important to both of us. And Rutherford County, I looked at the last report card, which would be a year ago in November, in the 9 through 12, we rate a 5, which is the highest rating. So that's taking, and it was actually 5 for all the subgroups and all too. So very commendable to be in a district and in an area who takes that seriously.
Especially after the COVID.
Absolutely.
Catastrophe, if you will. You know, when you don't have children in the schools, you know, I just don't know how they keep up, if you will.
Well, well, we're learning from all over the country, even though we have computers and all that. It really doesn't replace the teacher in the classroom can look you in the eye and see if you are paying attention or not. You can do that very well remotely. And then children feel more comfortable asking questions. But, you know, children learn from each other a lot, too. And so when they're in the classroom together and you have that combination, then they do pay attention to that. And you, again, the question and answer time is a part of the learning. And so I'm glad we're back in the classroom together.
I agree with you. There are a lot. I feel like kids learn most from each other. You know, I know with our, we brought it up here, but with the different languages now that are speaking in the schools with over 100, and, you know, like one high school having 29 different languages, I was like, is it not more cost effective to take those students and put in one school where they kind of feed off each other, and then I think they would all excel. But I think there's a going around, oh, you don't want to segregate them, but we take our best kids and we segregate them into a school system so they excel more, where if you have 12 people, because unfortunately a lot of people when they come up from a third world country have had no formal education, and they need the, you know, break it totally down to get the English language. And when you got a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old that's never been in school, and you throw them in a 7th, 8th, and 9th grade class, then I feel like it's a setup for failure. And
culture impacts it greatly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I agree with what you're saying there. We're coming up on our first break. You're listening to the former director of schools and principal and just a great man altogether, Don Odom, and we're going to take our first break, and we'll be right back with you in just a minute.
Hey, it's Scott. When it comes to health, there are numbers that every man needs to know, including our very own testosterone numbers. I recommend going to Low T Center, where they make it quick and easy to get your levels checked, and it's only $25. You walk in, take a simple blood test, and with their on-site lab, you'll know your results in about 25 minutes. Low testosterone levels can make you feel tired, grumpy, cause lack of motivation, and drive. It can also raise your cholesterol, cause weight gain, and loss of muscle mass. Go to lowtcenter.com now to book your appointment. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
Looking for a charming home close to downtown and MTSU? Look no further than this 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 0-lot line at 1341 Sharon Court. This home features a spacious living room, an open kitchen, and a primary suite on the main floor. It could be perfect for a family or a couple who wants to live in the middle of everything while still in a private neighborhood. Call for a showing today, 615-542-1915. I'm Chip Walters with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates.
Imagine life without the debilitating pain of knee osteoarthritis. Do you have pain when walking, discomfort when going up or down stairs, getting out of bed in the morning? If so, you're not alone. The good news is there's a true breakthrough in treating disabling knee pain that may help you gain your life back again. Dr. Zach Dittmartson of Aspiring Health Clinic in Murfreesboro offers cutting-edge treatment and technology that helps pain sufferers avoid knee replacement and stay active in their senior years. This breakthrough treatment is non-surgical and drug-free. Knee osteoarthritis will not go away on its own and will get progressively worse. Don't wait until you need assistance to get around. Call now for your consultation and examination. Call 629-231-8309. That's 629-231-8309. Aspiring Health Clinic in Murfreesboro. 629-231-8309.
Del Walmsley and the Wealth Cycle.
This is the wealth cycle that I've taught for 30 years. Buy one house, 10 houses, an apartment, 2 apartments, 8, 20, 500 units, 1,000 units, 2,000, 5,000 units. And as you keep putting the money and the profits back in, you become one of those rich people. And much quicker than you'd even believe.
Learn Del's Wealth Cycle at GiveMeTotalFreedom.com. Use promo code 2023. Save 60%. Code 2023. GiveMeTotalFreedom.com. GiveMeTotalFreedom.com.
It's Good Neighbor Events. Brought to you by Cardinal Realty Solutions, the law offices of John Day, and AmeriCare Pest Control.
This is a paid legal ad.
Hi, this is John Day of the law offices of John Day. I've lived and worked as a lawyer in Middle Tennessee for over 30 years, and to me, every single day has been an honor. That's why our firm is so involved with community programs like bicycle helmet giveaways and our Safe Ride Home program. At the law offices of John Day, we're not just looking to make donations. We want to make a difference in the community we hold so dear. And if you're ever injured, know that we are here for you too.
It's now time to take a look at the WGNS Good Neighbor events. With a look at what's happening around Rutherford County, here is WGNS's Bart Walker.
The Farmers Market. That's every Tuesday and Friday mornings from 7 until noon over at the Lane Agri Park. The Farmers Market. A little bit of everything there, and it's all locally grown. In addition to the Farmers Market, on Saturday morning in Smyrna, there's a Farmers Market there at the train depot. That's on Front Street in Smyrna, and it's Saturday morning. Here in Murfreesboro on Saturday morning, the Saturday Marketplace, all around the Rutherford County Courthouse on the Murfreesboro Square. That's 8 until noon Saturday. And there's some great plays to enjoy. The Portrait of a Young Man. That's all this coming weekend at the Mills Pate Arts Center. The Portrait of a Young Man is a one-man show. That's at the Mills Pate Arts Center here in Murfreesboro. And the School of Rock opens this weekend at the Arts Center of Cannon County. That's in neighboring Woodbury. And our hats off to Main Street Murfreesboro. We thank you for all that you do to make our downtown experience even better. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Good Neighbor weather. At midday today, we'll see lots of sunshine with high temperatures working up into the upper 80s. Then for tonight, mostly clear, dropping to a low of 64. I'm meteorologist Michael Cara, News Radio WGNS. Currently 65 degrees.
Broadcasting from the Middle Tennessee Electric Studios, MTE Sharing Change has now donated more than $11 million to local nonprofits assisting worthy causes in our community. MTE, serving to make life better since 1936.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
And good morning. Welcome back to the second segment of the WGNS Roundtable with your host, Rick Hall, and myself, Wayne Blair. And it's our pleasure this morning to have former director of schools, community leader, teacher, farmer, influencer. You've had such an amazing career, Mr. Odom, and it's a pleasure for Rick and I to have you this morning.
God puts us at a certain place for a certain time sometimes, so we need to recognize that and use it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You were also not only with Director of Schools and principal, but you were involved in some open concept schools back in the day, and I remember first time I walked into David Urey, and I thought, they don't have any doors on these classrooms. How does that work?
In the early 60s and all like that, we had the round concept. Rutherford County never did adopt a lot of that, but across the whole nation was the idea of with students learning from each other and sharing information came the open concept. So when they did close Kittrell, where I started, and I came to Oakland Riverdale opened in '72, and it was an open concept. Which typically they did move me kind of in a corner room, so I didn't have a door. But in some of the center rooms, they even had a lowered wall between the two.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. And so not only you had an open door, but you had an open wall. It kind of likens back to when I was in high school. We had study halls, sometimes in auditoriums, so sometimes I would listen to what was going on in the classroom, because when I got in there, I knew, gave me a head start at what it was going to be or what the next assignment was going to be. It worked out that way, but it's more distracting, I think we discovered, than it was participation in that. So thank goodness that concept left. I guess Elon Carlton was one of the ones who got into that in closing them off early on. He also made an interesting statement one time at Dallas. Said, you better build the schools where the students are, because you'll transport them for 50 years. I remember him making that statement. And it's very expensive to transport students now. So look where your growth is, and look where your schools need to be. But he actually hired somebody to come in and lay blocks and put in doors. We did it. Our maintenance department did some of it, but hired someone to do that. So we did begin closing them off because, and another thing that some of our listeners will recognize is we think of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and more with attention deficit disorder, that sort of thing. And the open concept and that sound really interfered with those children's learning. I had the opportunity as principal to talk to a lot of students and parents that had attention deficit disorder. And one of the best descriptions that they would describe to me what it was like would be, now we may be in a building somewhere working away and somebody's cutting grass outside. You have kind of the ability over time, and if you don't have ADD, that you can kind of tune that out. One the things that they would say to me, some of those students, they didn't really have the ability to tune it out. They said very often it's like a radio station that's between channels, that you're getting both. So the mind would go from one channel to another channel and all. So children with the attention deficit disorder, the lack of ability to concentrate was how they were missing much of their education. So it's very tough on them. So closing those classrooms down, and I think was a wise move.
Let's say autism, a child with autism might struggle with an open concept as well.
Yes, that autism spectrum is very broad. You have your savants who amazes you what they can remember and quote and say and all like that to other particular cases. But yes, anything that distracts it like that does have an effect on the learning environment, and you need to maximize it if you can.
It's interesting as I'm thinking back now on my time at David Urey. We were open, and it was pretty common back then. A parent would show up with cupcakes or a cake for your birthday, and you had those 3 classrooms all that kind of had a little a whole open area. So here comes somebody walking through with a big box full of cupcakes. It was like the other classrooms are like, where is mine? You know?
the David Urey was designed basically same architect, Oakland, Riverdale. So you had the 6 classroom pod.
Yeah,
and
that's
you're
right.
talking about
3
3
on
on
one
each
end.
and 3 on the other is what it was. We had 2 rooms with doors. If I can remember, when we opened, it was the music room and the art room. That was the only instructional areas that had the doors.
And it was
library.
all open.
Library didn't have doors
The bathrooms
either.
were open.
Yep.
As I took care of one of my classmates, and he was in a wheelchair, and so whenever he needed to go to the restroom, we were allowed to go, and I could take him. Well, that was kind of his time off, and he would laugh and everything else in that tile bathroom. And I think more than one time I've had somebody come in there and get on to us because what are you supposed to do? But
building design does have an impact on learning. I'll give you another example. Seagulls. The wings at Seagull, if you're single middle and all, go at a Y shape down. Gary Clardy, our engineer, we hired an engineer at the school board in that. And one of the things that he did very quickly in the design was go from the wing design to the T design. And there's a couple of reasons why. One reason is cost. Because when you're in a Y design and you're doing roof truss, those steel roof truss, each one has to be a different length than the other. So, because as you narrow down to the entry point, that becomes an additional cost to your building. So the T structure, all of your ceiling joists, your roof things, all are the same coming back. So it saves cost. Another thing interesting, the principals who were in there, they could put themselves standing at class change time at the T and see 4 different directions.
Right. Yeah.
But you couldn't do that necessarily with the Y design.
So why would you even have the Y design then?
Architects drive it a lot, and
For
they get ideas of how they look.
Okay.
Sometimes the footprint of the building is determined a lot by the area that you have, how much property you have, how much land you have to work with, and that sort of thing. So, but it does make a difference. So it's very important to be involved in the design of your building, that it's instructionally sound. And sometimes listening to teachers and principals can help with that too.
Sure.
And in my years as a director, and I know Mr. Gills and some of those where I was doing that, Mr. Watson, we started bringing teachers in to help with the design. Okay, you're in our last new building. What would you change if we were to build it again? And they'll tell you. And you have the architect there listening to those conversations. So that's how you get better. You listen to the people that are working in them, using them, and then you build that into your next design and concept.
With the way they're building warehouses today, we've talked about this, and you would probably have some insight into it. So with using the red steel that we do now for buildings and things, and we're still doing the old block and mortar type situation for every wall, all 4 corners, hallways, everything for schools, and that's driving the costs up to, it's well over $100 million now to be able to build a school like that program. I know we've got a charter school that's coming in, and they're building an 800 student complex, 2-story, for under $13 million. So what it was costing us over $100 million to do 1,000 students or 1,200 students, they're going to do 800 for $13 million. Have they looked at that, or has that been talked about? Or
yes, we had those conversations. Let me get Rick. Let me kind of bring you a little bit, because I did. One of the things, directors, you get to talk to people in other districts and other places and that sort of thing. And David Urey opened in '76, so here we are, going to be 60 years into that thing.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly here, and you look at it. Look at '72, Oakland and Riverdale, and while you can see some design that, because of its time, how do the buildings still generally look? The block and brick cost you more on the front end, but their look and their value to the community is maintained. As I would talk to directors of schools, yes, you can build the warehouse type with the metal sides and the steel construction. You still have the steel construction on the inside of a lot of your block and all. But they would say to me after 20, 30 years, the look of the building, their maintenance, their ability to heating and cooling over that time, the ability to build the insulation and the things they do, we just decided to spend on the front end, and that's one reason why we went to metal roofs instead of the flat roofs too, again, because of the longevity factor in dealing with that. But I would be a proponent really of the brick and the mortar and that sort of thing because of the aesthetic value, the value to the community, the pride that it creates in it over a warehouse style. That's my opinion.
Sure.
Even though you can build it cheaper on the front end.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Well, and there's some other things that go. I forgot to mention there's other things that go into a middle and high school. You know, there's athletic fields and extra additional parking that kind of drives up that cost a little bit sometimes too. So, you know, I guess is Central Magnet, is that the oldest facility in the
campus maybe?
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Campus maybe, yeah.
Gosh, there may be campus maybe. I think in that it's very, very difficult to make any additions or anything to all of those buildings because of fire marshal requirements, you know, drive those particular changes. Even to the fact that we had to put in elevators for handicapping conditions and that sort of thing.
Well, in the age of, with Smyrna Middle being built, I think 1960, and trying to add on to it, there was some difficulty in meshing the connection between the old and the new, from what I recall.
Yeah, the fire marshal drives a lot of that. There, you can get, if you connect it directly, very often you had to bring the whole building up to the most modern fire code, whatever that might be. Whereas if you joined it with a walkway or something like that, the new construction had to meet all the requirements of the current fire marshal standard. So, you know, I'm not sure. It used to be that we really haven't had a child die in a school fire in Tennessee much. It's really, even in some of your older buildings now, they practice that. You practice, you know, you have to have the fire alarms. And now we've got buildings with exit doors everywhere. You know, every classroom has an exit door, or very wide walkways if you're a two-story and that sort of thing. So to cut the cost back, what you're going to see more of now is the multi-story building, which you see some of it, Stewart's Creek. And Wilson County is going to more of that now. So to recover some of the costs over the metal building, which didn't work well, you know, to go 2 stories on it, you're seeing one way to recover some of those costs, Rick, is to do the multi-story concept.
Makes sense.
I assume the brick and mortar with tornadic and straight line winds that we have here in this area, that the bricks and mortar stand up pretty well for the most part against.
Unless you get a level 5.
Unless you get a level 5.
And then none of us are safe unless you're underground,
yeah,
as
exactly.
you might say. But again, you practice those. I remember many times we'd get the alarms that go off at David Urey, and our safest place, because the narrowest place, was the hallway. And we'd line the children up on their knees in the hallway, because if the roof were to collapse, you know, your restrooms, your hallways are the smallest space, just like they tell you at home, go into your closet or the bathroom. Same concept in the school environment.
Yes, sir.
Yep. We're coming up on our second break here. I hope you're enjoying the show so far. You listen to Don Odom. He's a retired school director, teacher, principal. He had many hats there. How many total years did you spend?
50.
Wow.
I would not necessarily recommend that. But I started at a different time.
God bless you, Mr. Odom. That is so cool.
At one job. But we'll take our second break and we'll be right back with you in just a minute.
TCAT has a brand new course.
I'm going to be an emergency medical technician.
For future emergency medical technicians.
Thanks to TCAT, I'm going to become an EMT.
It's a 300-hour program that can be completed in about 4 months.
I'm becoming an EMT.
The new program at the Tennessee College of Applied Technology paves the pathway for you to become an EMT.
I'll be an EMT.
You can learn the skills to become the next EMT through the new TCAT program in Murfreesboro.
I appreciate TCAT.
Visit tcatmurfreesboro.edu and click Programs.
This is Mike Cutter, owner of the award-winning family-owned home care agency Honey Hill Home Care, the non-medical home care agency for seniors in Murfreesboro. Don't let worry consume your family. Experience the difference at Honey Hill Home Care. Check us out online, honeyhillhc.com.
Here at Bud's Tire, we make buying Michelin tires simpler. I'm Allison Mitchell with Bud's Tire Pros. We offer a straightforward approach to service, including nationwide warranties with every purchase. Stop in today to see our full lineup of Michelin and BF Goodrich tires. For whatever you drive, Michelin and BF Goodrich have a tire to fit any need. Bud's Tire Pros, hassle-free, guaranteed. We're located on East Main Street, exactly 3 miles from the town square, 1 mile past Rutherford Boulevard. Visit us online at budstireprostn.com.
Woodbury Road Baptist Church invites you to worship with us this Sunday morning at 10:45. If you can't make it in person, listen to WGNS Sunday morning at 10:15. Find out more at woodburyroadbaptist.org. We look forward to worshiping with you this Sunday.
Talking with customers of Jeff's family-friendly restaurant on Hancock Street about why they keep coming back.
It is excellent. Very good food. It's kind of like eating at home. Real nice folks here. So good.
So much food at Jeff's, you'll have a hard time cleaning your plate.
Food is great.
Oh, this is great food. Give you an ample amount. They season it well and give you enough that you don't have to worry about going away hungry.
Come hungry to Jeff's family-friendly restaurant on Hancock Street.
This is great. I love it.
Really good. Glad I came today.
Jeff's family-friendly restaurant on Hancock Street.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
Good morning and welcome back to the third and final segment of the WGNS Roundtable with your host, Rick Hall, and myself, Wayne Blair. And our guest this morning is a great friend, community leader, former director of schools, Don Odom, and you've already shared some memories with us and some thoughts. I think this third part we were going to actually get down into the weeds a little bit, were we not, Mr. Odom?
I think it's a good idea to talk about where we are now. Maybe not, where we have been. The whole concept with schooling and the accountability piece now, of course, the state report card, that sort of thing that we're talking about makes a difference. Rutherford County spent in the district level, and this was before the 21-22 year. Again, the report card for 22-23 will not come out until this November. Was $9,729.13 per pupil. And another interesting thing in that report card, people often ask, how much local is that? Well, 49.4%, according to the state, is local money, is Rutherford County taxes, property taxes, sales tax, that sort of thing. State, 42.1%, federal, 8.5%. But interesting, in the federal level, there's been some special money. A little note I made: $4.5 billion in federal relief funds because of COVID between spring of 20 and 2023. The federal part did jump up. And I used to hear, "Gosh, we're growing so fast, it should pay for it." Growth will not pay for itself by itself, because if 42% of what we're spending on that per pupil teacher ratio has to come from local funds. If you move into Rutherford County, buy a new house, build a new house, and move in, and you bring 2 children with you, then the total cost of that child, state, federal, and local, is $18,000. Your property taxes is not going to be that for
probably $1,500-$1,600.
And very often, if you move in March, your property taxes aren't due till the next year.
Right.
So I understand the debates going on in the commission and some of the state legislators and all now about that $1 per square foot. Probably might cover some of it, but it's not covering that cost, especially if you move in March, and that would only kind of cover some of that cost for the year. So we've got to come up with some different models to fund it, education. I guess the other thing that kind of we deal with education, they're looking now, one of the new measures is the chronically out of school rate. In other words, the state has defined chronically absent from school is missing 10% of the instructional time or days. In high school, it's time. It's a class, maybe at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever. 10%, you can be called chronically absent. And if you look at that in the state of Tennessee, there's 20.3% of the students that are considered chronically absent.
Wow.
Even though it counts, and I'm not talking about the child that has to go out for surgery or has something that makes them be out, because we send homebound teachers to them.
Sure.
And then they'll not count as absent when you get the homebound teachers there. So much of this that is accumulated basically comes from choices to come to school or short-term illnesses. Rutherford County was 9.5% chronically absent. If the state's 20 and Rutherford County is 9.5, we're much better than the state. But in my mind, again, looking at statistics, when I think of you're looking at 9 to 10% of the students being chronically absent out of 50,000 students now, roughly in Rutherford County, that's a whole lot of people that's missing 10 or more days. That will impact what your student learns in that instructional component. Hard on teachers. People are always making up time when you're doing that. So that's important. So I'd say to parents too, when I said earlier on, one of the most things that you can do, read to your child earlier. Yes. Then I'd say when you get a little bit further along, one of the best things you can do is make sure your child is there every day. Now, I'm not talking about sending them to school when they got something they're going to give to everybody else. And during some of that COVID time and communicable illnesses of that sort of type, stomach viruses, I built a pretty good immunity to most of all those years in the classroom, but stomach viruses you never build immunity to.
No.
I don't care whether you're a teacher or director or whatever, if you're in that. But anyway, all that's in place. I guess another thing interesting to me, and I looked at a statistic here on the report card. People talk about the size of classroom and what you do and all, but Rutherford County's pupil-teacher ratio, when you take all of your classes together, is 15 to 1. And so the fact that you go to a public school doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be in a huge classroom.
Right.
In vocational technical education, it is 15 to 1, basically. But if you were supervising a group of students in culinary arts and you were using knives, carving and doing stuff, you wouldn't want too many children. Or you're running saws or something like that, or welders, or that sort of thing. So I fully understand that. We did try to lobby the state legislature to take business-type classes that were more school law, school business to be regular classroom sizes. But a lot of the small districts fought that and stayed at 15 to 1 even there. So there is something the state could do a little bit there. For textbook-type classrooms, it could raise that pupil-teacher ratio a little bit. Teacher retention, is an issue now. Lots of options for teachers to go. I did see where in a given year, I used to look at it some as director. It was not uncommon in any school to have almost a 10% turnover every year in a school of your teaching staff. We're talking about retirements. We're talking about a spouse would be transferred to another location to do that, or people find another job. Teachers have children, because we tend to be hiring them at the age when they become moms themselves, and some of them would stay home with their child for a while in a period of time, like 88.1%. So you're running around 12% each year, that retention that you're having to make that change. So when I saw this in numbers at 88%, it wasn't far from my 10% that I would see in that.
And there's fierce competition throughout the districts.
Oh, absolutely.
For these teachers.
And that's why your salary is important. Because, Bedford County and some of our surrounding county and some of the others, so we train them and then y'all get them. Or something. But some of the same thing happens to us when you see counties, Wilson County, Williams County especially, increase salaries a lot, and you lose those people sometimes with experience. So just like in the job world of other things in education, competitiveness is a factor in the people that you can hire and retain.
I'd like to bring up a subject you and I are very familiar with, and it's continue to get traction is the multi-track, the year-round school. And I know I think, of course, I went to several meetings about it. I think you actually went to a couple of different states.
We did. We looked at the one, they do some of it up in Kentucky, a little bit more over in somebody. I'm trying to think of where. Can't think of where it is. I did go to the West Coast once. Mr. Gill sent us to look at it some. We also, it was tried a little while. You remember at Cedar Grove?
Yes, sir.
Well, we did do a summer session, and also at Siegel Middle. Some people love it, and some people do not. One of the things that you run into a little bit with it was we had opposition that came from sources you didn't expect. Boy Scouts, that's when we have our camps during the summer. Churches, we have our vacation Bible schools, we have everything. When are we going to have it if you're going to keep the kids all summer too? But one of the things in the multi-track situation that we did find in places where they really used it a lot, especially in California, the buildings were used 365. You just had a different group of kids there. Their problems would be things like, how do you take school pictures when you don't have them all at school at one time? Well, you work out ways to do it. But it's then teachers either have to teach year round or they take a track off in doing that. So I did find it was interesting. Some of the athletic people in the year-round track, the football people wanted their track off in the summer so that they could take the students and do their fall training for the football, you know. And actually in some places where it's done, they called it unfair because the others that had the track and they didn't have all their players at one time. But there is some economic advantages in doing that. And probably as we go forward, you're going to see that looked at a little bit more than you used to.
I would think that the maintenance and transportation
wear and tear
part would play.
Food service.
Yeah, those costs would be just,
interesting. I would used to say to sometime, see a door or something. Yeah, we have a maintenance crew that they're fully assigned to doing panic hardware and doors and all that. Really? Yes. Look how many times kids go in and out a day, and all your doors in your classrooms and in and out. That your maintenance costs are extensive, even in the other situation we have now.
With the unfortunate school, shootings and things that's going on, have you seen, as far as a homeschool, is it evolving more and more and more, and you're seeing more go that way, or?
I think homeschool is growing some. And I'm not sure how much is driven by that, but I can tell you, as my years as superintendent, and especially. You wake up in the morning and you think about that. When you call snow days or not snow days, you're thinking about the safety of the kids and the bus, and you hear that you're worried about copycat things. And so, Rutherford County is one of the very first in the nation to have SROs, and I'd have to credit Truman Jones.
Yes,
and that right. Building with that. In fact, our SROs changed the Department of Defense for their schools. They did the training for them for that early on, so certainly give them credit. And people were wary at first, and I can remember talking to Smyrna Laverne, Bud Rakes was a little bit questioned, do we need SROs in here now? But he became a firm believer in a while too, because when children got their relationship developed with those police officers, and you're one of them, you know what I was talking about, Rick.
Yes, sir.
They'll tell them things that you wouldn't find otherwise, but you don't want people to fear the policeman.
Right.
And when the children learn that young and learn they can be their friend and they care about them too, that relationship is so strong. In that, and actual criminal justice is one of your strongest VOTEC classes that you have in your high schools nowadays.
I agree 100% with that. But I saw a swing. I mean, from my early years having to go, unfortunately go speak to a student or something, and I would go to school and I said, hey, I need to talk to Johnny about this. And then you would tell them, hey, go home, talk to your parents, here's my card, and have them call me. And they would call you with, concern and that, what did Johnny do I saw this evolution of, why are you picking on my son, and just I guess through social media and TV and everything now that I saw a shift, and I think the SROs being in the schools like they are have helped that a little bit compared to what it was, a few years ago. But I definitely saw a turn. Like you said, I wish we had more parent involvement because, a lot of parents a lot of times think you're just out to get them, and you're just trying to, especially at juvenile level, because there's not really going to be a whole lot of stuff happen in juvenile court. So if we can get a good, easy resolution through, the school and the parents and the kids involved, then that was always what our aim was.
I remember one interesting scenario. We used to deal with DCS a lot too. I had one case where a student called DCS and they had to do the investigation within 24 hours of that sort of thing. But the issue was the parent was making them carry out the garbage. Because DCS came, they did their thing there, but I had to laugh, not in front of the child, but later on. You hit that, oh my goodness.
I am pleased with Rutherford County, the way career and technical has evolved. It seemed like it was always on the back burner for so long, but over the last 15, 20 years, it has been elevated, with the other curriculum and, plumbers, electricians, and, just
building trades.
They're just, not everybody has to attend a university.
The pay is higher now for some people that are not going to university. We're seeing that.
So they go to a TCAT or some other technical.
Well, the state now, if you graduate from a recognized high school, you're going to get 2 years.
Yes, sir.
So you can go to the Smyrna TCAT or something like that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So.
Well, I want to thank you for being with us.
Enjoyed it.
Today has flown by. It just seems like we just started.
Mr. Odom, you've always been such a blessing to so many of us, and God bless you for your service. I mean, you've really given this county community.
Well, both of you fellas have dedicated your lives, not only as commissioners doing it, and you even down to PTO, and you with your children. And we're a better community when people are involved, and that's why I said get involved with your children at school, become a supporter, and we can make a difference.
Yes, sir.
Sure
and you have. Thank you, Mr. Odom.
Thank you.
Speaking of kids, and if you wanted something to do with your kids this weekend, I was just looking on the calendar what we got coming up this weekend because it seems like there's a lot going on. But the Smyrna Outdoor Activity Center, this is National World Snake Day this Saturday. So they're going to have reptiles that you can go and check out.
Take a pass on that one.
I know that it's going to be a standing room only for Snake Day, but that's this weekend at 10 o'clock at the Smyrna Outdoor Activity Center. But I hope everybody enjoyed our show, and we'll be back again with you next Tuesday. Have a great day.